Hey guys, this is Dave with Gizaudio, and to be honest, I'm actually pretty excited about reviewing this device, but at the same time, I did want to make sure that I tested everything thoroughly, and this being Ibasso's flagship DAP, it's very feature-packed. So of course, there's a lot to go through, plus all of the different IEMs and headphones I had to test it with, not to mention the comparisons. But without a doubt, when it comes to these types of reviews, because there is just so much information to go through, the hardest part is trying to figure out what to exclude or include and how best to efficiently communicate all of that information. So hopefully I can do that in this video. We have a lot to talk about, so let's get started. Okay, so again, this is Ibasso's flagship DAP, and it is priced accordingly at $1,699. So as DAPs go, we are starting to delve into the higher end of DAP territory. Of course, there are more expensive DAPs out there. Ibasso's own Dx340 Max Ti is going to set you back about $3,500. The A&K Kern and Ultima SP3000T about $3,000. The Shanling M9 Plus is also around $3,000. So you can certainly spend more if you want to, but is that really necessary? Well, I don't know, but maybe some of the information I'm going to provide today may help answer that question. So this is everything you get in the box. We've got a lot of screen protectors for both the front and the back of the Dx340. Several of them are the flexible protectors, but they've also included 2 glass protectors as well. We have a very nice genuine leather case, a 4.4 balanced burning cable, a coaxial cable so you can use the Dx340 as a digital transport to an external DAC, a USB Type-C cable, and then they've also included a 12-volt power supply, but I don't have it out here because I don't have enough room on my desk, and I actually have it plugged in behind my desk here. So, but they do include one, and we'll talk more about that in a few minutes. On the outside of the device, we have a really nice 1080p AMOLED display. The chassis is constructed of CNC machined stainless steel, and the build is extremely robust, and without question, it feels like you are holding a flagship level device. And it looks great with the case, but it's simply stunning to look at without the case. On the right side is a volume wheel and some playback controls. On the top is a 2 terabyte compatible micro SD slot, a USB Type-C output, and a charging port, and then a coaxial output, which is what the coaxial cable is for. And again, that's just in case you wanted to use this as a source for an external DAC. I tested it on my FIO K19, K9 Pro ESS, my X-Duo TA32, Element M2, and it worked perfectly and it sounded amazing. On the bottom are the 4.4 balanced and 3.5 single-ended headphone outputs, and then your 12-volt DC input. But let's go ahead and talk about the inside, and we'll start with the amp card since we're looking at the bottom of the device anyways. So this bottom piece of the DAP can be removed and is actually an amp card, and this stock card is the AMP15. It uses 8 BUF634 modules, and depending on whether you're using battery power or the 12-volt power supply, you're going to have two different power output capabilities. Using the battery only out of the 3.5, this is going to give you 3.16 volts RMS of level output and then 312 milliwatts of power output, and that's at 32 ohms. But then if you plug the 12-volt power supply in, that's going to enable super gain mode, and that's going to increase that output to 4.2 volts RMS and then 550 milliwatts at 32 ohms. But here's what's really cool. Out of the 4.4 balanced output on battery power, you get 6.23 volts RMS of level output and then 1200 milliwatts of power output at 32 ohms. And then using the 12 volt power input, that jumps all the way up to 8.3 volts RMS of level output and 2,150 milliwatts of power output. And that, of course, again, is with a 32 ohm load. But that's just ridiculous. And again, the AMP card can be swapped out for the AMP 12, the AMP 13, or AMP 14. And I think they might actually be coming out with another new AMP 1 card as well. But the geeking out does not stop there, because those amps are combined with their in-house discrete WM DAC. That's 16 sets of cascaded 8E PWM DACs and their FPGA Master 3.0 technology. And there's really so much more on the hardware side that I could get into, but I do need to move on to the software and UI. But you know what? Actually, I do need to mention the battery or batteries, because they've done something really cool. It actually uses two batteries, one for the amp section and then a separate battery for the digital section. And from what I understand, the purpose is to, I guess, minimize the electromagnetic interference from the digital section to the amp section. So that's pretty cool. And as far as battery life, I was getting anywhere from about 8 hours streaming music using a Wi-Fi connection, and then as much as 9.5 hours just playing music using the onboard Mango player. And that's playing the music files saved to the DAP itself. And speaking of the Mango player, again, let's go ahead and jump into the software and UI. So again, the Mango player, of course, is the music app that comes stock on the DX340 that can be used to play all of your onboard music files. And since you have 256 gigs of internal storage, plus that 2 terabyte compatible micro SD slot, that means you can store a ton of music. But you can also, of course, download all of your streaming apps as well from the Play Store, like Qobuz and Amazon Music. Now, if we dive a little deeper into the settings, you'll also find some additional sound options like separate amp and DAC gain modes, output modes, digital filters, and car mode. And you can also access a graphic or parametric EQ in the Mango player as well. And there's, again, probably a lot more I could talk about, but I think that covers most of the main features and specs. So let's go ahead and move on to sound. Now, as for some of the headphones I used for testing, I paired this with my LCD3s, Aria Stealths, the HD800S, the 109 Pros, and then I also have the brand new Meze Poet here. Then I also paired it with some of my mid-tier and entry-level full-size sets like the 99 Classics, P2 Pros, SV023s. And then as far as IEMs, I paired it with my Divas, Gaias, Kuyas, Cantors, and I've got some of them out here and many others. So I think I tested it with a pretty wide variety of sets. Then of course, I also compared this with a lot of other devices as well. But I still have a lot of information I need to cover. So we'll go ahead and talk about its performance with full-size headphones first, because one of the things that kind of sets this apart from a lot of the other DAPs out there is its power output capabilities. And one thing I did not mention is that by using the 12-volt power supply, if I understand this correctly, what it does is it powers the amp card directly and it bypasses the battery, which I don't know if I've ever seen this kind of implementation in a DAP before. And again, in this mode, that power output jumps up from 1200 milliwatts up to 2150 milliwatts out of the 4.4. And just to put things in perspective, the M15S, which that was my reference DAP for a long time, has a max output of 1200 milliwatts, and that's in desktop mode. And then the R6 Pro Max back there has a maximum output of 678 milliwatts. The Onyx Waltz M10 Limited, which is currently in transit to me as we speak, has 880 milliwatts. Then the DX180, which I've got over here, gives you 690 milliwatts. Now, of course, because of where they priced this, it's going to be competing obviously with the likes of the FIO M17, which puts out an impressive 3000 milliwatts of power output. So this is not the most powerful DAP out there. However, it is certainly pushing some impressively high numbers, especially when you consider its 8.3 volts RMS of level output. And the bottom line is there are very few headphones out there that really even need much more power than this can provide. It was certainly way more than enough for all of my sets, and it wasn't just powering them well, this was giving performance levels that I would consider to be excellent and definitely worthy of flagship status. But to break things down just a little further, starting with the overall presentation of the Dx340. So I need to preface this by reiterating that in my experience with not just portable devices, but even higher end desktop devices, that while I can't necessarily say this is the absolute pinnacle of audio nirvana, it is up there and is again what I would consider to be flagship level. But what does that mean? Well, first and foremost, it's ultra transparent and is about as linear as it gets. It's not bright, it's not clinical, so I didn't hear any sharpness or edge to its presentation. It's not harsh, it has excellent treble extension, so all of the air, all of the micro nuances are present. Everything in the upper frequencies simply sound accurate and generally just sound correct. And neither does it lean the opposite direction. There's no obvious coloration in the bass, the mids. There isn't any perceivable excessive warmth, yet male vocals sound very rich. Bass dynamics are excellent. Kick drums have ample impact. The bass is extremely fast. It's textured, yet it also sounds incredibly natural. But I think the attributes that really impressed me were its just the speed and the precision. And again, the detail retrieval is just pretty incredible. And these attributes are present in every part of the spectrum. So from the lowest frequencies all the way to the highest. And again, I was able to hear all of those details in the bass, all of the texture, and at the same time experience all of the physicality and the richness, the note weight. And then as you move into the mid-range, it was just very clear, it was very natural, also very detailed, it was uncolored, and that carried through into the treble as well. It was exceptionally detailed. There were micro details. It was resolving, it was airy, and everything just sounded correct and complete. I don't know how else to describe it. And again, looking at its presentation on the whole, I didn't pick up on any coloration at all. It was about as transparent, linear, and resolving as you could expect from a flagship level device of any kind. So I think we've established that this is a very capable device, and it's capable of driving most full-size headphones, not just well, but when paired with more capable higher end sets, its performance is what I would consider to be excellent and is at a level I would expect from a flagship DAP. But another thing that's really great about this DAP is how versatile it is, because it's also, in addition to being capable of handling headphones that require a lot of power, it can also handle delicate, highly sensitive IEMs like my 2020 Andromedas back there. And while I'm on the subject, I've had a few questions in the comments about the 2020 Andromedas, basically asking, why do I still own them if there are so many other better sets out there? First, I do agree that its tuning is a little wonky and it's maybe not the most natural sounding set out there, especially now 5 years later. However, and I have brought this up before, and I actually should also say I do like variety in my collection, and having well over probably 100 IEMs, I am bound to have variety in my collection, but I like that. We all know things can get really boring if you don't have a little variety in life. Not to mention, even 5 years later, it's still an IEM that I would consider to be very resolving and fairly technical. And while it's not currently the most technical set that I have, I did use to test the technical capabilities of source devices for a very long time with that IEM. But the reason I use it now is, of course, to check background noise. It's a very sensitive IEM, and if a device has noise, there is almost no chance that it will not pick it up. But beyond that, I think one of my main reasons is that it's also a sentimental set. This was a set that accompanied me through some pretty dark times, or at least dark times for a couple of people I was very close to. And this set played a huge role in giving me just a little bit of peace and some time to escape during those times. So there you go. Okay, the DX340 is making me a little emo, but I digress. Back to noise levels. In low gain, the DX340 has a pretty black background, although with the Andromedas, I did hear a very faint amount of hiss, but all of that disappeared completely when I was actually listening to music, even the quietest of my test tracks. And with practically all of my other sets, I heard absolutely no background noise at all. So unless you have some extremely sensitive IEMs, it's not anything you should be concerned about. And even if you do, it's not anything to be concerned about. On the contrary, if you have flagship or high-end IEMs and you need a portable flagship level solution, this is without question a device you may want to take under consideration, because all of the attributes that we discussed in the headphone section are applicable to IEMs. Detail levels and resolvability are excellent. It's linear and exceptionally transparent while also presenting instruments and vocals completely naturally. There's no coloration, there's no brightness or sharpness of any kind. And I haven't even talked about the level of technical performance I was getting with both IEMs and headphones. And I don't want to say too much about the Poet here yet, but talk about lush vocals. This pairing right here was absolutely stunning. But with all of my most technical IEMs and full-size sets, I was getting excellent immersive qualities. So excellent wide staging, excellent forward depth and layering, excellent levels of separation, imaging, and instrument focus and density. It confidently occupied that space with a sense of physicality and density and focus that I rarely hear. Not the best I've heard, but certainly among the best I've heard in a DAP. So I guess I should try and wrap this up right here. And this is where things get a little harder for me, especially when I'm reviewing a device that cost this much money. So who would I recommend this device for? Well, obviously, if your IEM or headphone collection consists of flagship level or higher end sets, and you are looking for a portable, or maybe what some might consider to be transportable solution, because it is pretty large and pretty heavy, but also for something that is powerful enough to maybe sit alongside some of your other desktop devices, especially if you use the 12-volt power supply, and you absolutely do not want to compromise sound quality, in my opinion. While again, you can certainly spend more money if you want to, when it comes to DAPs, I really don't know if it's necessary, because based on my experience with this device, when I switched to the Dx340 from my K19, my TA32 that's on the other side of my desk, the K9 Pro ESS, my Element M2, I never once felt like I was compromising quality. And in some cases, I even noticed improvements. And while there may have been some differences in their general presentations, obviously there's a big difference between the presentation of the TA32 and the Dx340, because that's a tube amp, but not once did I ever feel like I was stepping down in quality. And again, in some cases, for example, with my Cantors and Takuyas, I actually felt like I was hearing small nuances and details that I don't think I've heard before in those sets. And while I do think there are certainly areas where it could use some refinement, especially on the software and UI side of things, more specifically the Mango player, in the areas that mattered the most. So sound performance and features, I feel like the Dx340 offers a level of sonic performance that even the most discerning and discriminating hobbyist could appreciate and even be happy with. So that concludes my review of the Ibasso Dx340 flagship DAP. If you are new to the Giz Audio channel and you like our videos, please take a minute and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to go a step further, you can also support us through our Patreon. I'll be sure and leave a link in the description. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this review. Please like this video, please comment on this video, please share this video. I hope you all have an awesome day.